Well, welcome to the Metal Institute of Thrashology. This is the Distorted Dialogue podcast. And we got Fermentor here. We got Adam and Dylan. Adam's the guitarist and Dylan's the drummer. Don't you guys?
Happy to be here.
Oh man, I'm so stoked to have you guys here. I've been listening to your new album, Agreement, over and over and over. And what a great album it is.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
tell us all about it. How awesome was it to make?
Thank you very much.
It sounds really fun.
Yeah, man, it's one of the greatest recording experiences of our lives, if I can speak for us both. Yeah, it was super fun to record. It was a lot of work. And we are hoping to share some of our process a little more in the coming months of how that all went down. But we actually recorded this album, Agreement, and our two previous albums, Release Me and Mind Meld, all in the same 5-day session. But Agreement, for those who don't know, is all improvised music that Dylan and I recorded in the studio. So we went in there with no preconceptions or ideas, and we just tried to come up with stuff we thought was cool in the moment. And sometimes we knew it was cool, and sometimes we didn't until later. And that's what Agreement is.
Well, that was the coolest, that's the coolest part about it for me, is that you guys didn't sit down and thoughtfully plan out each intricate note and just let the chemistry happen.
That's right. Yeah, we're celebrating our chemistry.
Now, you guys are cousins, right?
Yes.
Sort of.
Sort of?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yeah. No, we through a marriage that has now been divorced. So
Okay.
not by blood, but yeah, we've known each other our whole lives.
Oh, so that's kind of cool. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Sometimes distance but you guys have known each other. It makes that chemistry so much easier, I think, to mesh. And is that where Mind Meld and these Agreement album art came from?
Big time. Yeah, we always try to think of it as like us, we're trying to sort of smash our brains together, or we're trying to think at the same time. Because often, even our written material stems from improvisation. So even the stuff that we've written, it all has always sort of come from jamming together and seeing where someone's gonna go and turning on a dime together, and which comes just from us knowing each other our whole lives, but also, I mean, we've been jamming together for almost 20 years now, so that also kind of comes into play, I think.
We also have been working at our improv abilities. So even just being able to do that in a way that we can build an arc in a song and stop together, or we those are skills that we've intentionally developed so that we could even do this in a way that's digestible, I think.
My only complaint about the album was the spaces in between the tracks. If you just would have deleted those spaces, it could have just been 1 hour long song. And I think that would have been just as cool, because I don't know, if you laid the tracks out in the order that you improved it, because it flows extremely well.
Yeah, there is a flow to the chronological order of the songs. These songs are not in chronological order. We did try to, I should say, on Agreement and on Release Me, which is also all improvised on Release Me. We tried to curate it in a way that we would any other record. So sort of once everything was improvised, the rest of it was like any other album, as far as the mixing and editing and the ordering of the record and all that kind of stuff. Everything else was kind of approached in the exact same way we would our written material.
What led you guys to choose instrumentals?
Just naturally evolved, right, Dill?
Yeah, I mean, our very, very first thing that we ever put out, our demo, we had bass and singing on there just because I feel like we just sort of thought that we had to or something. But as we've been writing music together for years now, we now sort of think of the song as okay, the drums and the guitar, that's the song. That's the whole piece. It's not missing vocals. It doesn't need,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's
Right.
let's write a song where it's not gonna feel like anything's missing. It's literally just guitar and drums. And when we thought about that, then every moment of the song has got to be exciting. Every part of the song has to be packed with interesting ideas and interesting changes. So and we liked the songs that we wrote. We never thought that they were missing anything, or and as we write more songs and as we get more confident with the way we record our stuff, we're even now more, thinking to ourselves that these are complete ideas, these are complete pieces. So it's just sort of developed out of it just being us two and just being like, all right, well, let's make this a full song. Let's not think, oh, well, one day we'll get the other members, or you know what I mean? Let's just make it, like this.
Also, I think that instrumental music is more common in other genres, like in jazz and rock and stuff like that. And in metal, I feel like instrumental kind of there is some like I love like Behold the Octopus and Dysrhythmia and stuff like that. Or some bands will have instrumental tracks, like even Cannibal Corpse did from Flesh to Liquid, which is a great instrumental track. But I love instrumental music and listen to a lot of it. And so just approaching it that way, which is like, those songs don't feel like they're missing anything. It's just part of what makes them special. And so I think we approach Fermentor in the same way.
And I think Dylan hit the nail on the head when he said it's not that we left out. And I started this about a year and a half ago, and like it's really I've had a lot of instrumental music sent to me, whether it be like more on the progressive metal side or even more on the death metal side of the house. And it seems like you guys incorporate both in your sound. But it really gave me like a finer appreciation for instrumental music because one, like you're relying on the listener to craft their own interpretation and storyline based off of your selections or improvisation, which is even more mind-blowing to me that this is what you're improving because there's so much rise and fall. There's not repetitiveness. There's a nice groove through it. So when I read it, honestly, right before this interview, that it was an improv, I was like, what the fuck? There's no way. But
yeah, I love that. That makes me happy. We hope that if someone doesn't know that it's improvised, that it doesn't detract from it should still be an enjoyable experience to listen to the record, being ignorant of the improv of it all. But then when you learn about that, hopefully that makes it extra special.
yeah, and I have some memory issues. That's why I take about a half hour before every interview, and I like make sure I understand who's who and what's what. And so I read that like there's no bass on this either. And then I went back and started listening to the songs. Like it sounded like there's bass in there. Do you have like a 7 string or an 8 string or 15 string? Because it sounds great.
Thanks, man. I'm glad that you like how it sounds. I work really, really hard to make it sound full. And I play a 6 string and a 7 string. The 6 string is tuned to drop D, and the 7 string is tuned to drop A. I do have a low octave I occasionally include at parts, but for a lot of it, it's not engaged. But I do run a triple amp setup. So I have 2 guitar amps and a bass amp that are running pretty much all the time on the record. I'll occasionally drop one out, so that it'll pan to the side or things like that, or drop the bass for a second and bring it back in. When we play live, I use a guitar rig and a bass rig at the same time. So yeah, I work really hard to make sure that my sound is really, really full and deep, and so you're not missing that low end extension.
Yeah, I even went back, like I said afterwards, like, it sounds like there is the lower registers.
Yeah.
And Dylan, your drumming sounds so much different than like an atheist style drumming, on this record.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I never want to have anything sound the same. I always want it to be different. And what was interesting for the 2 improv records is because we recorded those while we were doing the written record. So, we would go into the studio, we'd have 2 songs to record, and then in our downtime, we would just jam and jam and jam. So we were jamming nonstop for like 6 days. So when we went back and listened to all the improvised songs that filled up Agreement and Mind Meld, we didn't remember recording them because they were all completely improvised off the cuff. So it was the first time in my life I had ever like listened back to like songs of mine that I recorded, and I didn't know what they were gonna be. I didn't know how they went. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't know what was gonna come next. Like I literally had, everything was a surprise to me. And I remember just thinking like, oh, that's a cool beat, or oh, that's a weird choice, or oh, or because oftentimes we would sort of be recording and be like, all right, let's start a song and go. And then what would happen is we would both just come up with a weird thing at the same time, which would create really strange like textures that like I never heard before. He would do like a weird guitar picking thing, and I would just do a strange beat that you would never think to put the two over each other, but we didn't think to. We just sort of started playing. But then when you listen back to it later, it's like, oh, that beat actually does kind of sound strange with that riff, and I wouldn't have really made that choice, but I'm glad I did because now it sounds like this weird thing I've never heard before. So it was cool just like listening to all these cool fills and drum beats and ideas that I just like kind of, when you're improvising and you can't remember 5 days worth of stuff. So we were like, it was like listening to like a band I'd never heard, like, or it's like it's like new songs from my favorite band or something. Cause I was like, oh, I like all these decisions because these are choices I would have made, but they sort of just like came together in a cool way like that.
So did you guys just kind of like walk into a room and we're just like, fuck it, we're gonna record like, I don't know, a 5 minute song. And you just write 5 minutes right there?
In a way, I mean, we like Dylan was saying, we basically, the only agenda we had was our album Mind Meld had 8 songs, and all those songs are meticulously written. So it's like every little detail is very specific and very orchestrated, and those songs had to be perfect and sound great.
Okay.
And so we had 5 days total, but 4 days where we were actively recording 2 songs per day to get through all 8 for Mind Meld. And
Okay.
then in and around that, we would just jam. And anything we came up with from the jam was like a bonus. And
Yeah.
then we would find what we had later. And it was often we would do a jam, whatever it was, a couple of minutes or 5 minutes. And we have a lot of video of this stuff. And you would just see us go like, okay. Like I guess that was cool, And then later we're like, oh my God, like this is like so much cool stuff in here, like so much imaginative things that just very first thought, best thought, just stuff we couldn't really recapture again. And it feels cool to feel like we're part of our own audience and being surprised by our own performance.
Also, it's infinitely easier to start an improv song than it is to end an improv song. So we've spent a lot of our mental energy over jamming and improvising the last few years of like sort of hearing when the song is like, okay, maybe we need to like end it now, or oh, that can be a thing that we can end it, and recognizing it and looking at each other and then try to, and try to, because sometimes we like try to end a song and I would sort of like, and then he would keep going, so then I'd sort of keep going, but that, and some of them we were just like, together and boom, we ended like on the exact same note, and it feels like magical because it was improvised, and it's like that can never happen again. So like improvising has all these difficulties and challenges that come along when you don't realize like, oh shit, how's this thing gonna end? Like we can't just have every song just end with a fade out. Like
I think a lot of people who because I think a lot of people improvise to get, people who jam together, they'll just jam for fucking 45 minutes straight just because it's fun, and I relate to that. But that doesn't work if you're trying to like create something, listenable for anybody.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like, okay, but then later someone's going to have to want to listen to this.
Yeah. And so it's like we were pretty aware of that. So we did have some, I guess, like
Framework?
Yeah, or just like some strategies, that we had developed, or just like some understanding or common like agreements, where we would just know that like these do have to end at some point, and we are trying to make something like that has a story or whatever. And I really like what you said, Mike, about how it kind of relies on the listener, or it seeds the meaning to the listener for them to be able to fill in the blanks and infer what could be happening, in the story of it all.
Yeah, like I'm not trained musically at all, and I just started playing guitar a couple years ago, and I literally suck, but I enjoy the journey, and it gives me a finer appreciation for like the shit everyone else puts out. And like I just was thinking about the improvisation. I was just talking to a guy a couple days ago from Chaos Monad. I don't know if you're familiar with that band.
Chaos Monad. I've heard that name.
Yeah. Well, they have like 5 songs, and each song is like 45 minutes long. And it's sort of like, it sounds to me like your album without the breaks in it. It just flows.
Yeah.
And it seemed like we were talking about how hard the difference between newer musicians and older musicians of writing albums versus songs to be released on algorithms. And I was saying it's really hard, in my opinion, for somebody to write 2 or even 3 songs on an album that work really well together. And then I listened to your album that's really heavy front loaded. And like you get towards like it started lightening up, and I was like, please don't take this too light. And you guys took it pretty light on Hide Behind Hands. And I was like, man, that might be my favorite song now on the album. Because because Hide Behind Hands flowed really well into like the energy of Proto Human and then right into the energy of Skybeam, which kind of lends itself to more of a thrash feel. So then I was like, man,
Yeah.
I improved all this shit. Like, did you guys go back? The reason I asked, did you guys go back and have to like edit and cut and paste like the improvs or?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring up those particular tracks in
Because they're
that
so
context.
different.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, stuff like Hides Behind Hands, that was just done. You know, that was just I just came up with it in the moment. That's all guitar.
Wow.
And that's what it was. Proto Human, I think, is pretty much the same. We really tried to keep the editing to a minimum because we really wanted to feel like whatever we did was what was given. And that's the sort of agreement we had come into with the audience, which is like we're just going to improvise this stuff, and you guys are going to see if you like it. There are songs, Skybeam is actually a good example of one where we did use some editing to kind of optimize the song, but it's really, really minimal. We didn't do that very much. But Skybeam, I think, is way, way better for the little tweaks that we had done.
Skybeam is literally 2 songs put together that were very similar, and I like found like what I thought was like the perfect place to like make the one go into the other.
And he was right.
And
Yeah.
I think it's
So
better because it's still short, and the vibes are very similar. Actually, the other song that we mixed it to was called Vibe Killer. So obviously we,
What
we
is that?
kept we kept the name Skybeam.
That's funny. I didn't remember it was called Vibe Killer.
And there's a few in there where we did some editing wizardry. There's a couple where we were just like, all right, 8 is plenty for that riff because it's like sometimes when you're improvising, you gotta like repeat things, and so you know what I mean. So there were a couple songs where like we were like each part of like each riff we played like way too long, so we like kind of meant, all right, let's just do 4 of this and 4 of this, and it almost like saved the entire song because a song can be great, but if there's like even in an amazing song with amazing riffs and amazing drums, if there's like one part that's like 10 seconds too long and you're sort of like, all right, can we get to the fucking, then like you know what I mean, like then the song it's like it can't do that. So with a couple of key parts where we just sort of took out one too many things, it like really saved a lot of songs, I think, in a lot of like really cool ways. Um, and then there's a lot of drum fuck ups, that I kept in because that's sort of the spirit of the record. But there were some drum. There's one song where like I dropped my stick like twice, and so we had to like loop a drum thing. You know what I mean? So like
yeah, yeah.
that's the fun of being in the studio.
Yeah.
Also, since we do so much improvisation, oftentimes when you're writing, in the back of your mind, you're thinking to yourself like, okay, but remember all this, because then later we have to like do it again if we want to turn this into a song. So it was very freeing in the studio to just be like, all right, just whatever it is, I don't need to then worry about later if I'm able to play this, or if it's too many loops on top of each other, and it's just like let's just make it sound cool and worry about all the other stuff later.
And there are a lot of like not just fuck ups, but just like weird little idiosyncratic stuff that happened. Yeah, like occasionally you'll see like if and we will. There are a lot of videos of these songs, by the way, which we'll get to in a second. But you can see us, go to our headphone amps for a second and like twiddle the knobs to like get a better balance, and like Dylan will be like hitting his snare with one hand and like fixing his headphone amp, stuff like that. And it's like that's on the track, it's a little one-handed part.
So I get so much music sent to me, and I get a lot of singles. I review for a website, and so oftentimes people send me these perfectly sterile singles, and I listen to it. And it's phenomenal music, and it sounds great. But there's auto tune on it. They're using some type of synthesizer to perfect the sound, and I listen to it, and I'm like, man, I could just go to AI and listen to anything, which I won't do. But I mean, like that's the point I'm trying to make. Like I appreciate those nuggets and nuances when I go back the fourth, fifth, sixth time.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of humanity in this, which I think was something that was a realization I came to, was that is what is cool and special about Fermentor. In part is we are two human beings in a room like making something out of nothing. And if you auto tune it to shit, or you edit it to shit, or whatever it is, then yeah, it becomes so, it just sounds programmed, which to your point, it might as well be made by something electronic. So yeah, we really wanted to try and bring the listener into the process and experience the sort of raw material of what makes a Fermentor song.
It almost has a live feel to the album the more you think about it.
It is live. I mean, we played live. That was exactly what we set out to do. I think most bands are, they go in and they record with their drummer, and then they throw the guitar tracks away and start over with the guitars and do that in a separate session. And we did that too in the past. That was how we managed our records. But with this one, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to capture what we sound like live, because it makes a big difference, and it conveys more of our nature and our character and who we are as musicians. And it was really, really worth it.
Oh, yeah, also speaking of mistakes, I feel like I have a special perspective just because I've been jamming with Wally for so long, and we often know based on like what we're playing, what the other one's gonna do or what the other one's trying to do. So there are like a handful of like maybe like funny notes on the record that I'm telling you right now make me laugh harder than I laugh in anything else in this world. It's just because I like know in the moment like what Wally was like trying to do. So when I like hear like a funny guitar note or like a note in a solo, like I get so much joy. I laugh like literally this record makes me laugh harder than any comedy record or any stand-up comedy anything, because I like remember being there and I remember like what we were trying to do in the moment. And there's like a couple like ahs on the record that like every single time I hear them, I die laughing. And I hope, Wally, that you laugh at the drum part.
I do, and honestly, I don't really laugh at the drum parts too much. I think there's maybe one or two that I think are kind of funny. I mean, it is also like a limitation of my abilities. It's like I'm not very educated musically. I have a lot of experience, a lot of passion for my instrument, but I don't have really an academic understanding of the instrument. So I'm hitting my threshold of understanding with my instrument, and whenever that happens, it's like it can break down in a way that is very funny to hear, because it's like in Guitar Hero or whatever, those like scream, skronk, those kinds of things. Like it's kind of like that, but in real time, and that's a good example of stuff where it's like we didn't edit that stuff out. It's like we did keep it there. It becomes sort of a time capsule. It's a documentation of what we were able to do at this time in our lives, and it's awesome. I mean, I hope to look back on it years from now and laugh just as hard.
And I picked up like several nuances that I don't know if you guys just improv'd it or if it was like a technical, like, something different. And I thought to myself, because this is where you start talking about limitations, I was like, oh man, this reminds me of Paul Gilbert when he played the Holy Diver album, but he used his guitar instead of singing. And it was really cool because he was able to tell the story and he matched Dio's inflection and his sustain with each note. And it almost felt like that to me on the album, whereas sometimes the leads to me were in such a cadence that it felt very vocal or rhythmically vocal to me. And I thought that was a really cool, eclectic difference that not a lot of instrumental artists use.
Thanks, man. That's very complimentary.
That's cool.
I love that. I do think I have, again, because of like I'm not really much of a like shredder in that respect. I'm very like comfortable rhythmically. I tend to write a little more melodically or more vocally, as you describe it. Yeah, man, I love that. Thanks. That's great.
But I think that your album has to have that because if it doesn't have that, then the instrumental wouldn't work. Then you would have to have a singer because it would feel like it was missing.
Maybe. I mean, our previous albums, it is not common for me to solo. Our previous records, there really aren't any solos.
Yeah.
It's sort of a riff fest. You should check them out if you haven't, Mike. Check out Mind Meld and Continuance because those records are really just relentless death metal records, instrumental death metal records, and there's just not a lot of soloing on there. It's just not how I have come to write as frequently. But these songs, I mean, to your point, Mike, it's like when we start to chill out these arrangements and some of these songs are just not as brutal, then it does feel like they can have some melody to these solos or lead parts and stuff. So then it felt more natural to go there, I think.
When I do an interview, and especially with yours, because I had like a lengthy period of time that I was notified. So I usually go back and I try to listen through the whole catalog in chronological order repetitively in order to get the feel. And I do feel, for lack of a better term, I don't mean this as an insult, it got a little bit more lighter and melodic, but it became more like well-rounded too, and like more eclectic and improvisation. And it was really a fucking good record, man. And I really enjoyed it. And I'm curious to see where I want to marinate on this for a little bit, but I want to see where you guys go too,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Well,
we've definitely evolved. Go ahead, Dill.
Yeah, I mean, because we've just implemented the looping into these newer records where we're improvising, but we're now starting to write material where the looping is written. So it's sort of melding,
Yeah.
so to speak, the sort of written aspect of it with our improvised sort of looping so hopefully we can now write some more songs that are going to sort of bring in this sort of newer, more interesting element. That's better.
Do you think though, as you guys are progressing in your career, you're just becoming better songwriters and you guys have better communication, I'm sure. Like a chemistry as long as you guys have been together is extremely rare in music. And it comes across in your music, it's just, the chemistry.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it does require just constant communication and it's not all easy and you butt heads and it's tough with a two-piece too because there's no third person to sway the decision making, so it can be very two immovable objects sometimes trying to make a decision, but I think it all comes from a place of like we just love each other and we're
Awesome.
best friends, and if that wasn't there, this would be a lot harder, I think.
Yeah.
But that being there definitely helps to, it makes it a joyous process, even in the stressful times, which there are, But also one thing I wanted to mention, just because maybe we're coming low to our time here, but all of these songs off Agreement were released weekly since January. So we didn't drop the whole record at once. Every week we released one song from the 17 song album with a video. So all of these songs have videos from this album, Agreement, and our previous one, Release Me, that we did for whatever it was, 34 weeks straight, pretty much. So I definitely want to recommend to you, Mike, if you haven't already, and your listeners, to go to our YouTube and watch all those videos, because you can see us talking, and there's little tales before the songs and after the songs where we react or talk about stuff, or you can kind of see the genesis of how these little riffs came together from like troubleshooting or whatever it is that kind of was the inception of the part. It gets a little more insight, and we're working on some even more in-depth stuff coming soon to really into the minutia of our process recording these records, because it was really an undertaking, and we're just so proud of it.
And all those videos are on the Fermentor YouTube channel?
That's right. Yes. Fermentor Metal, or Fermentor Official.
And the full album comes out. Is there going to be a physical release on August 15th?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. There is. There's Fermentor's album Agreement comes out on CD on August 15th. And we're really excited about that. We're working on a release show as well here in our hometown of San Diego.
August 22nd.
Sorry, August 22nd is the show. August 15th is the release of the CD. I got them here. They look awesome. They're really cool. They got some extra artwork and goodies inside. And it just sounds excellent. The CD sounds really, really good. And we hope people will check it out.
For sure. As you can see, I was obviously excited about it. I think people should go and pre-order it.
Yeah, we would love that too. You're absolutely right.
Awesome. So if you guys are from San Diego, who's going to be playing the show for you guys? The record
we're still waiting to hear back from some, but we are playing with Fudgerate, who's an awesome sort of proggy / sort of folky metal band.
Say it again.
They're called Fudgerate, Fadrait.
Okay.
And then a black metal band called Cerulean.
Like Cerulean's sick. They're like blackened death metal. Like they're like oh man, I don't want to tell tales out of school, but very Gorgutsian if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really, really rad bands, both of them.
Gorgutsian.
I'll definitely check both of them out. I listen to music constantly because I have like ringing ears. I'm sure you guys understand.
Yeah, it's funny. We carry earplugs at our merch table always, and I'll shout them out from
Fermentor branded.
Yeah, Fermentor branded earplugs. We really recommend people protect their ears.
Yes.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Fermentor sounds best when your ears are safe. So don't let your ears. Mike, maybe it's too late for you, but everyone else, try and avoid your ears ringing because it sucks. I work with my ears. That's my livelihood. So we got to protect them.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming by. It sounds like you got a lot going on, and I really wanted to thank you guys for taking time out to stop by.
Thanks so much, Mike. This was awesome.
Thank you, Mike. Nice to meet you. Appreciate you.